Chapter 16. The next morning, tens of thousands of young men and women gathered in the hall on the first floor of the guild headquarters, all of whom came from various planets to participate in the Gambling Stone Apprentice exam. Fortunately, the guild headquarters covers a very large area and the hall is spacious. Otherwise, it would never be able to accommodate so many people. Looking at the crowded crowd and the beating numbers on the detector, Jean Mao's face turned pale. This time there were more than 1,000 candidates than last year. Regardless of the number of people, the Stone Gambling Association will only hire the top 100 players every year, which means that this year's competition will be more intense than in previous years. He unconsciously glanced at Bai Jing next to him, and the calm and indifferent appearance of the other party made him slowly calm down. It doesn't matter, this year he is much stronger than last year, and he has been instructed by Bai Jing, and he will definitely enter the top 100. Look, the contestants of Capital Star are here. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. I saw the group of Shiran, a group of 14 or 15-year-old noblemen and women, coming from the door. They were wearing silver uniforms with silver chains on their chests. The boys were handsome and the girls were beautiful. Everyone spontaneously gave way to let them walk ahead. Fortunately, there are not many people this time. Only 30 people. There are so few contestants in the entire Capital Star. Hey, don't you know? They were all recommended by the major families of the Capital Star, and they are absolute heaven's favorites, and the pass rate of the assessment is close to 100%. Not only that, the top 5 in the annual assessment will be taken by them, and there has been no exception in the past 10 years. This is too strong. Damn it, don't we only have 70 places? Among this group of people, the most conspicuous is the young man headed. The teenager has thick chestnut hair, blue eyes like the most dazzling sapphire, fair skin, slender body, like a prince who came out of an oil painting, with a mighty arrogance, is the focus of everyone's attention. See. The one standing at the forefront is the young master of the Du family, Du Xingyu. The Du family. Is it the Du family of the second largest wool miner in the empire? It's a behemoth second only to the Gu family. That's right. His sister, Du Jingya, is the youngest 5th-level stone gambler in the history of the empire. Influenced by his sister, Du Xingyu likes to gamble on stones since he was a child. He owns a whole planet of raw stones and has received professional teaching. He must be the first. Alas, this year's contestants are too strong. I hope God bless us to pass the test. Bai Jing walked to the tester with the flow of people. After passing the test, he entered the number 6 test room to which Proxima Centauri belongs. The space of the examination room is very wide, and each person has a corresponding partition, which is separated by an opaque light curtain, forming a space of 4 or 5 square meters. The assessment time is 2 days, divided into theory and practice, each of which takes up 1 day. The total score of the exam is 100 points, 40 points for theory and 60 points for practice. The first day of the test is theoretical knowledge, and the test time is 5 hours. Bai Jing connects the virtual port on the desktop to the optical brain, which shows that the authentication is successful. The interface of this assessment appeared on the light screen. After clicking on the answer, the light screen flashed instantly, and countless questions floated by in front of Bai Jing, and finally settled in an instant. This is equivalent to randomly selecting a set of test questions from thousands of question banks, and each candidate is different. Bai Jing swept it from top to bottom at a very fast speed, and found that these topics were very detailed, covering all aspects of knowledge, and the coverage was extremely wide. But this theoretical knowledge is not difficult for him. Today's Bai Jing has read all the content in the chip, and the foundation is very solid. Coupled with Gao Ling's professional explanation in the classroom, he is now familiar with the knowledge of gambling stones. He had only read these questions once, and immediately had the answer in his mind. The electronic pen in your hand is as light as nothing, with an excellent touch, and you can leave clear marks without any effort. The black nib writes quickly on the glossy screen with almost no pause. 2 hours later, Bai Jing stopped answering, the beautiful and neat handwriting displayed on the light screen. But in an instant, it turned into general electronic writing. The brown eyes behind the lens checked the answer from beginning to end, and after confirming that there were no omissions, he walked out of the examination room. Du Xingyu was the only one in the empty hall. He obviously just came out and was standing on the detector to be tested when he left. Seeing Bai Jing, Du Xingyu was obviously stunned for a moment, and his azure blue eyes flashed with surprise. His speed of answering questions has always been unmatched. According to his calculations, the second person to leave the examination room should be at least an hour later, and he should come from the number 1 examination room where the capital star is located. Who is this person? The speed of answering questions is even comparable to his. But looking at his clothes, he is obviously a civilian. Du Xingyu thought about it this way, and couldn't help but glance at Bai Jing again. His expression was indistinguishable. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he snorted disdainfully and turned away. It was he who thought wrong. This person is not talented, but he can't answer it. It was a waste of time for him to stand in the same place and guess for a long time. Cut. It's really boring, as expected by Du Xingyu. The next candidate to walk out of the examination room was a girl who came out of examination room number 1 3 hours after the examination. The girl's identity is also noble. She comes from the Tang family, the first mecha manufacturing family in the empire. Her grandfather is the strongest mecha maker in the empire. Bai Jing sat in the waiting area of the hall, first drank 2 nutrient solutions to replenish his strength, and then turned on his light brain to watch the virtual image of Wool, while waiting for Jin Mao and Ngu. The theoretical test this time is indeed difficult, but it has not reached the level of perverted that little fatty said. According to his speculation, tomorrow's practice assessment is the top priority, and it is the part that can really widen the distance between each candidate, so it is necessary to prepare early. Brother Jing, we're out half an hour before the end of the exam. Jin Mao and Ngu walked out of the exam room almost at the same time. With obvious excitement on their faces, it can be seen that they did well in the test. The little fat man excitedly wanted to pat Bai Jing on the shoulder, but the latter avoided him reflexively. Brother Jing, thanks to you helping us sort out the test center, I have answered all the questions except for 2 or 3 questions this time. Yeah, I'll definitely pass the test this time. He clenched his fists with both hands and couldn't help but let out a roar, which attracted strange eyes from everyone. Let's go. Bai Jing walked out of the hall first, and the two hurriedly followed. The second practice exam started at 9 a.m. and ended at 5 p.m. It lasted for a full 8 hours, which shows that it was an uphill battle. Bai Jing followed everyone into the examination room in turn. His seat was still number 138 in examination room number 6, and there was no change. The only difference is that there are 5 nutrient solutions provided by the headquarters on the table to ensure the physical strength of the candidates. Bai Jing connected the virtual port on the desktop to the optical brain, and at the moment when the two were connected, he felt that he had come to a virtual space with several woolen materials. Dozens of pieces of wool are placed on the stone platform in the space, with different appearances and sizes. At the same time, other candidates also entered the same virtual space at the same time. Just because of the space isolation technology, each candidate is equivalent to being in a different parallel space and does not interfere with each other. Immediately afterwards, a sweet female voice sounded in the empty room, very clear. Please note that the content of this practice test is, first, please classify the 55 wool materials in the examination room according to the planets and the entrances, and enter the corresponding numbers of the wools into the corresponding planets and entrances. Each wool material is worth 1 point for a correct answer, and this item totals 55 points. Second, please select a piece of wool that is most likely to produce jade among the 55 wool materials. If the bet goes up, this item will be counted as 5 points. The two assessments have a total of 60 points, and the examination time is 8 hours. Now the countdown begins. All the wool materials placed in this space are all unscreened wool materials that were taken back from various planets by the members of the Stone Gambling Guild. Except for a few wool skins with obvious characteristics of the field, most of them were taken randomly and are not representative. It is difficult to judge. I am afraid that apart from the Stone Gambler who got the wool back, no one knows where the wool came from. Bai Jing looked at the answering place on the light screen. There were more than 30 planets listed on it, with a total of more than 80 entrances. It's easier said than done to accurately judge each of these 55 pieces of wool and classify them in turn. Sure enough, it's a hell-level assessment. Bai Jing sighed in his heart. Time was running out. He began to look at the first piece of wool in turn. The first piece of wool is about the size of a football, with an angular surface, a yellow sand leather shell with grayish-white spots on the surface. When irradiated with strong light, the light transmission is not strong, indicating that the leather shell is thick, which is a typical performance of Dimoxing number 1 field. Bai Jing filled in the number 1 on the corresponding field and began to look at the next one. The first 4 or 5 had typical characteristics, but when it came to the 6th, he was a little uncertain. This is a piece of lime skin wool, about 30 centimeters long and 10 centimeters high. It is an irregular cuboid with different shades of surface. He used a strong light to illuminate along the epidermis, and the light transmittance was not strong, indicating that the skin was thicker. Other than that, however, the wool had no other features. Bai Jing's eyesight was excellent. He looked at this number 6 wool material 3 times over and over again, but he still didn't find anything. There are no pine flowers, python belts, ringworms, and dryness on its surface. It is plain and featureless. This wool material can correspond to the field of 7 or 8 planets. In desperation, Bai Jing could only put it aside for a while before continuing to watch the next piece. In addition to judging the planet and field where each wool material belongs, he also has to write down the wool material that performs well, and finally select the best performing piece in it as the answer to the second assessment. 2 hours later, Bai Jing looked at more than 30 pieces of wool material in a row, of which 3 were inaccurate, and the rest filled in the answer. Bai Jing frowned, not satisfied with the result. But what he didn't know was that other candidates had already been tortured mad by this year's perverted exam questions. Jian Mao sat on the ground without any image, holding a magnifying glass in his hand, and stuck his entire face to the wool material, but still could not observe any features, so he slammed the ground violently. Damn, it hurts so much. When his fist collided with the hard stone slab, it was like hitting a stone with an egg. He couldn't identify 1/3 of the wool, and he was about to cry. Who made such a perverted problem this year? It wasn't so difficult last year. After more than a month of hard work and experience in previous years, coupled with Bai Jing's guidance, Jian Mao's strength has risen steadily. Even so, he is very difficult, not to mention other candidates. There were shouts of swearing and cries on the verge of collapse from different rooms, and many people left the exam room after scribbling, preparing to fight again next year. Even Du Xingyu, the most favored person in exam room number 1, frowned, with 4 or 5 indistinguishable wool materials on hand. So it was not easy. At the same time, in the room on the top floor of the Stone Gambling Association, the president of the Stone Gambling Association looked at the exhausted look of the candidates on the big screen, narrowed his eyes slightly, stroked his beard, and smiled. Ha ha, it seems that my idea this year is very good. You can see that they are all in a hurry. They are indeed young people. They are full of energy. Hearing this, the corners of the mouths of several senior stone gamblers standing beside the president twitched. You have come up with a good idea. These candidates will be miserable. However, they also know that the number of applicants this year is too large. If the difficulty is not increased, it may be difficult to widen the gap. You don't need to look at the number 1 this time. It must be the boy of the Du family. With the guidance of his talented sister and the inheritance of Master Du, he will definitely reach the top. Well, not only that, the harder the problem, the easier it is to widen the gap. Du Xingyu will probably surpass the others by a large score. The stone gamblers looked at Du Xingyu's nearly 100% correct rate on the big screen and showed a tacit smile. This year's number 1, there is no suspense. Hey, this kid is also very good. The wool he judged was filled in correctly. 1 is not bad. A 6th-level stone gambler suddenly said.